Hello, you're watching Impact with me, Tim Willcox. What's behind the migrant crisis on the Poland-Belarus border? Warsaw says President Putin is the mastermind and could easily stop it. We speak to Russia's ambassador to the EU.
Stop doing what? Perhaps the first thing to do is for somebody to tell the Polish government to stop doing what it is doing.
Well, what about the other migrant crisis along the US-Mexico border? We're in Mexico City ahead of Joe Biden's meeting with the leaders of Mexico and Canada. We travel with the thousands of migrants making their way north through Latin America to try to get into the United States. At the front line of climate change, thousands are at risk of famine in Madagascar as droughts and failed harvests bring severe hunger there. That's all coming up here on Impact. Hello, welcome to the programme. After a day of serious clashes between migrants and Polish border guards and a freezing night for hundreds in a makeshift camp, reports are emerging of President Lukashenko sending buses to collect many of the people stranded there. Poland's Deputy Interior Minister said the camp near Kutnica was slowly emptying, although the border guard agency wasn't clear of their final destination inside Belarus. Some of the migrants were reportedly carrying firewood. Our correspondent Adam Easton has this update from Warsaw.
Well, there's been some developments this morning. More than 1,000 people stayed overnight in a makeshift camp near a closed border crossing on the border, and several hundred of them, for the first time, actually slept indoors after the Belarusians opened up a logistics centre at that closed checkpoint. Now, what the Polish officials have been saying is that this morning they've seen that the makeshift camp, people have been packing up and they've been leaving. And Poland's Deputy Interior Minister, Maciej Wąsik, has said that buses have been sent to collect those migrants. Now, Poland's border guard confirms this information as well, has put out a video of this, of them the migrants being led out of the camp. But what they say is they don't know where they're going to. And they also said that some of the migrants were carrying logs. Now, we must remember that Iraq is planning to send for the first time a plane to Belarus to repatriate some of those migrants on Thursday.
Well, wherever the migrants are being taken, the political row between Poland, the EU and Belarus is intensifying and spreading wider. The Polish Prime Minister and other Western leaders believe the mastermind behind the current crisis is the Russian President Vladimir Putin, something I put earlier to Russia's ambassador to the EU, Vladimir Chistchov.
Well, why do you think Russia is orchestrating anything? Russia has nothing to do with the events unfolding, if only trying to assist a resolution of that very unfortunate situation where hundreds of people suffer.
But President Lukashenko relies on the Kremlin for cash and for support now. If President Putin were to tell him to stop doing this, then he would.
Stop doing what? Perhaps the first thing to do is for somebody to tell the Polish government to stop doing what it is doing, creating a very negative image of the European Union on its side of the border.
Do you understand, though, Mr. Ambassador, what is happening? Belarus is, or has been, laying on flights, telling people, migrants from all over the Middle East and elsewhere, that this is a way into Europe, and then effectively busing them to the border with Poland.
Well, I wouldn't exclude that certain individuals in Belarus and in Poland, and perhaps in other EU countries, may be cooperating in creating a sort of a chain of this human trafficking. but I don't have any reason to believe that the government of Belarus is behind that.
Why do you think the migrants are going to Belarus then and not going to other borders? Why aren't they going perhaps to the Russian border?
Perhaps they have concluded that by virtue of the visa-free regime introduced by Belarus with as many as 74 countries a few years ago, this might be an easy transit route for them to reach the European Union. And of course, rumors fly, so they take advantage. They go in their countries of origin, they go to tourist agencies, they book flights, they get their visas, or they enjoy the visa-free entry into Belarus, and then head on to the EU border. And actually, the people we are talking about, they pay a lot of money to the traffickers, not to the Belarusian authorities.
If I may, I'd just like to move on, because isn't this really a distraction for what is happening on the Ukrainian border with your country and the mass build-up of troops there?
Well, I haven't seen any facts corroborating this statement that there is any.
If I may just, we've got a graphic here from Maya Technology Maps showing the build-up on the border from spring, and now we've got reports of 114,000 troops massing on the border again now. What are Russians' intentions regarding Ukraine?
You are mixing facts. The 114,000 referred to last year's exercises.
But they are still there, sir.
No, they returned, but actually where Russian military contingent should be placed within Russian territory is sovereign decision of the Russian authorities.
But isn't it suspicious that Russian troops should be massing on a border where there has been a war since 2014, still ongoing in the Donbass region, of course, where militias and units are supported by Russia?
Isn't it disturbing that NATO is staging naval and air exercises close to the Russian border in the Black Sea region, which is very far away from the United States, from Britain and other Western countries?
Russia's ambassador to the EU there. Thousands of people in Madagascar are at risk of famine, and more than 1 million more are suffering severe hunger. That's according to a stark warning from the United Nations. Climate change has disrupted the cycle of the rainy season, resulting in droughts and failed harvests, which have now forced people to eat leaves, cacti and insects. The United Nations says that impending famine in Madagascar will be the first that cannot be blamed, even in part, on war, and that climate change is now playing a role. Our Africa correspondent, Catherine Bayirahunga, is in the capital of Madagascar.
Tim, we've just come back from the south of Madagascar, the Andrua region, and this is an area that's very remote. There's hardly a phone or internet signal in some of these villages that we've been to, and these are communities that are battling high temperatures that go up to 45 degrees. There's also been irregular rains, which has meant it's very hard for people here to plant crops and even raise cattle. And they tell us since these droughts began about 3 years ago, they've done what they could to be resilient and provide for themselves. But that has meant that they've had to sell virtually everything that they own, from land, even household items like spoons and forks. And according to the UN, the fact that they're in this precarious position where they've lost the reserves that they have, it means that they're exposed to what the UN calls the effects of climate change. They can no longer provide for themselves. We also went to medical clinics where you have young children less than 5 years old who are being brought here. Their families walk for dozens of kilometers to get there. And these children turn up with visible signs of malnutrition. They're very thin, but then also with the malnutrition comes disease. And many of them often have infections that then health workers are trying their best to deal with. But this is an incredibly tough situation for a lot of families in the south of Madagascar.
Yeah, and diseases, I'm reading, also spreading through cattle populations as well. The terrible irony, Catherine, here is that Madagascar itself is a country of almost zero carbon emissions itself.
Exactly, and this is really the anger from the government. Earlier today, we were speaking to the Environment Minister, who's just returned from the COP26 summit. And when they went there, when the government went there, they were hoping that there would be extra funding for adaptation, for resilience, to help these communities to be able to survive the effects of climate change. But they say that help is not coming. Some of the projects that we've seen in this region is to try and plant more forests, to enrich the soil. There are attempts to bring in new varieties of seed to cope with the drought that's happening in this area. But right now the situation is about the immediate crisis, and the fact that the UN says that the numbers of people who are facing hunger, some even famine, around 28,000 people they estimate to be in catastrophic situations at the moment. Those numbers are rising, and that's a real concern. So as well as the long-term, medium-term interventions, there's the real crisis at the moment and the help people need in the south of Madagascar.
Catherine Bayerhanga in Madagascar. Stay with us here on Impact. Still to come, several coal-fired power plants around the Indian capital Delhi are temporarily shut in an effort to tackle the toxic smog over the city.
Check this out.
It hasn't been such a long time since people first started shopping online, and it was easy to keep up with the clicks. Little by little by little by more, the clicks added up to be more than the stores, and e-tailers worked harder than ever before because they had to keep up with the clicks. No time for borders, got to stay in control, to stay in the flow and continue to grow. But we'll help you. Keep up with the clicks.
Life has a wonderful taste. Let Grana Padano show you how to savor it. Grana Padano. Life is there to be savored.
Next on Hard Talk, the actor George Takei, forever famous as Lieutenant Sulu in Star Trek, interned as a child in the US for being of Japanese origin, now a campaigner for gay and immigrant rights. Was Star Trek too idealistic about human nature?
You're watching Impact on BBC World News. When it comes to the US-Mexico relationship, a single issue has dominated in recent years: immigration. For President Trump, it was almost the only lens through which the White House considered its relationship with its neighbour to the south. Well, now, under President Biden, migration remains the priority as record numbers make the journey north. On Thursday, Joe Biden will be hosting the leaders of Canada and Mexico at the White House for the North American Leaders Summit, in the first gathering of the so-called Three Amigos since 2016. Laura Trevelyan is in Mexico City.
Dawn is breaking over the Zocalo here in Mexico City, which was once the ceremonial heart of the Aztec capital. Behind me is the historic National Cathedral. And as you were saying there, immigration is really the #1 issue in the US-Mexico relationship. But what's been happening under President Biden's watch is that so many immigrants who think that it will be easier to enter the United States because he's not separating families at the border as President Trump did. He's not trying to build a wall. So there's been this record surge of migrants, by the way, from across Central and Southern America, trying to cross Mexico's southern border to get to the United States. And now what's happening is migrants are attempting the trip as a single group. And our correspondent, Will Grant, met them as they travelled.
It has become the defining image of modern Latin America. Migrants on the move. Setting off before dawn, some 4,000 migrants from Central America and the Caribbean spent weeks making slow progress across southern Mexico. Clutching their children as they walked, led by little but their faith, they'd come from all corners of the continent. The Ux Vivarona left his native Cuba 7 years ago. He moved to Ecuador, where his daughter was born, but the family income has halved during the coronavirus pandemic. Reaching the United States, he says, is their only hope.
For Cubans, the doors to the US have always been open. That's no secret. With or without immigration policies that favor us, Cubans have always got in. It's been harder with the Remain in Mexico policy, but I think that's finished for good now.
In a gathering of migrants this size, one hears the full cross-section of problems in Latin America, from economic ruin and political instability to climate change and COVID, from Cuba to Colombia, Haiti and Honduras. But although the push factors at home are more acute than ever, many are finding it hard to settle in Mexico too. In fact, a record number of people have applied for asylum in Mexico this year. Between January and October, there were 108,000 asylum requests. That's 80% higher than during the previous president's entire 6 years in office. Mexico's asylum agency, COMAR, is chronically underfunded and admits it struggled to cope even before this latest spike.
Every single nationality has increased. In addition to that, we have all these Haitians. And of course, since the numbers are growing that much, we are not our capacity is limited. And that's why.
Can you cope?
Well, actually, with all these people coming now, we're kind of being overwhelmed. That's very clear.
And do you have the budget to cope?
No, exactly that is the point. We don't have the budget, and we're struggling for that budget.
Critics say the lack of funding shows the Mexican government isn't serious about helping migrants, a point I put to the president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, at one of his daily news conferences.
No hay un país.
There is no other country that designates as many resources in proportion to its economic capacity as Mexico to help its people, especially the poorest. And Mexico remains in solidarity with the migrants too.
Mexico and Washington speak of creating a $4 billion development fund for Central America to dissuade people from heading north. But in truth, it will take much more, both in money and time, to tackle such an ingrained continent-wide issue. Will Grant, BBC News, Chiapas.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by Eunice Rendon, a migrant advocate from the group Agenda Migrante. Eunice, thank you so much for joining us here on this beautiful morning in Mexico City. Just tell me, is the Mexican government stepping up enforcement at the border under pressure from the United States?
Yes, we have done that for years, and now we are still doing that. We did that with Trump, and now with Biden we have the same thing, that the Mexican government is doing like the wall work for the United States. Now we have a lot of military forces in our southern border, and also we are pushing migrants in order to stay in the southern part of Mexico.
Eunice, can you just explain? The migrants who are crossing Mexico's southern border with Guatemala, they seem to be coming from all over Central and South America. Why is that?
Yes, we have a lot of, in the last month, we have a lot of migrants from Honduras, but also a lot of people coming from Haiti, because all the things that are happening in their country, but also a lot of people from Haiti that were in other countries, and now because the smugglers told them that they could enter to the United States very easy, they came also to Mexico. So we have seen a lot of people, and I think that something very important is that the 80% of people we are seeing from all these countries are family units. So they come with their children, and it is very difficult also because it's dangerous for them and for their children. And we have a problem not only in the southern part, we have also a big problem in the northern part of Mexico because Biden policies, like he finished with remaining Mexico policy, which was very well.
That was when people had to have their asylum applications adjudicated here in Mexico.
But now we have a lot of Title 42.
Which is where the Biden government is using this public health law in the United States to send back people because of coronavirus.
To Mexico.
Right, because of coronavirus. But as an advocate for migrants' rights, Eunice, what do you say to people who want to reach the United States, knowing, one, that it's illegal, and two, that it's so dangerous?
It is a very dangerous path. So, but what I know also about migrants, they have very bad conditions in their countries, especially on insecurity is the main reason and the push factor that we have seen in the last years. So it is difficult to tell them to stay in their country, but they have to take care. And also smugglers are very bad people who are telling them a lot of lies in order to take them into the trip. So I think they have to be aware of that.
Our day of lives of the migrant crisis in Mexico. Now, after an unprecedented year of devastating cyber attacks on international push is now underway against hackers. Cyber gangs are being arrested in multiple countries. One place, though, where arrests aren't being made is Russia, which has historically ignored accusations of harbouring some of the worst cyber criminals. Our cyber reporter Joe Tidy travelled to Russia, where some of the accused are living millionaire lifestyles with little chance of being arrested.
Cyber citadels are crumbling. From Ukraine to South Korea, hackers are being rounded up. Online too, US intelligence services are hacking back, dismantling criminal networks and even retrieving some of the stolen riches. But there's one place where arrests aren't happening. For years, Russia has brushed off accusations that it's harbouring hackers. More Russians have been sanctioned or indicted for hacking than any other country. 27 appear on the US Cyber Most Wanted list. Most of them are linked to the intelligence services, but some are alleged criminal hackers.
We're here today to identify and announce charges against a Russian national.
Maxim Yakubets and his right-hand man Igor Turashev are the two most wanted alleged hackers in the world. They're accused of leading Evil Corps, responsible for stealing more than $100 million from victims in 40 different countries. Working with BBC Russia's Andrei Zakharov, we found contact details for them. At Moscow's prestigious Federation Tower, Igor Turashev runs 3 businesses. The receptionist found a mobile number for Turashev's company. Hello, I'm looking to find Igor Turashev. Whoever answered said they worked for the company and wanted to pass us on to another number, until Andrei told them where we're from. Maxim Yakubets too is not keeping a low profile. His wedding was lavish and cost at least $500,000. After multiple attempts to contact him, we tried addresses in Moscow. He wasn't in, but his father was eager to talk.
Вы сегодня объявили его преступником. На каком основании? Где доказательства его преступления?
How do you think your son has become so rich?
А кто сказал, что он богатый? Он он выше среднего, потому что он зарабатывает.
You seem very upset by the US and the UK's accusations.
Меня это огорчает, к сожалению. Меня огорчает, потому что я считал Америку большой страной. Она превратилась в очень плохую страну. Страна, которая не отвечает за свои действия и за свои слова.
The US evidence against Yakubets and his crew is made up of testimony from former gang members and cyber forensics data. Some of the evidence was even obtained by the Russian police years ago when they were still helping the US investigate. Those days seem long gone now.
It's more valuable for the FSB to enlist hackers in Russia than to put them in jail. One of my sources, ex-FSB officer, told me that he personally tried to enlist Yakubets and his guys from Evil Corp to do some work for him.
At their spring summit, President Biden spoke to President Putin about harbouring cybercriminals. Putin denied it was a Russia problem, but promised to work with the US. The talks have yet to bear significant fruit, but many experts say Russia needs to play its part to fully turn the tide on organised crime in cyberspace. Joe Tidy, BBC News in Moscow.
That programme being shown in full over the weekend. We asked the Russian government to comment on the fact that hackers seem to be operating freely in Russia, but received no reply. Let's move on now to the situation in India and the smog there. Indian regulators have temporarily shut down several coal-fired power plants around the capital in an effort to tackle the toxic smog. It's been shrouding the city now for days. Schools and colleges have already closed until further notice, and office workers have been told to work from home because of the air quality. The BBC's Salman Ravi has more from Delhi.
A state of climate emergency has been imposed in and around India's capital, Delhi, after the air quality has worsened over the last 1 week. Schools have been asked to shut down, colleges and other educational institutions have also been ordered to shut down for a week's time. While the government officers have been asked to cut down their staff strength by 50%, and the government has also appealed to the private institutions to ensure that most of their employees, they work from home. The air quality index has reached around 500 points this week, which is very severe. So now the government is reviewing the situation. Heavy vehicles have been asked not to enter the capital city, and the Commission on Air Quality Management has also asked neighboring states and cities to ensure that the industrial units are shut down for a period of 1 week. That includes thermal power plants also. And after a week, the Commission is going to review the air quality level in Delhi, and then it will decide whether this ban or this emergency is extended for another 1 week's time or not. Salman Ravi, BBC News, Delhi.
Just before we go, Queen Elizabeth has been seen in her first official engagement since missing the Remembrance Sunday service just a few days ago. The 95-year-old monarch pulled out of the ceremony due to a sprained back injury. But as you can see here, she was at Windsor Castle today, standing, smiling, as she greeted Britain's outgoing Chief of Defence Staff, General Sir Nick Carter. It is the first time in nearly a month that the Queen has been pictured carrying out an in-person engagement. The Queen's eldest son, Prince Charles, who is on a trip to Jordan, was asked how his mother was feeling now. And this is what he had to say.
But once you get to 95... you know, it's not quite as easy as it used to be. Bad enough at 73.
It's bad enough in your late 50s sometimes. That is it from me. We are back tomorrow with more editions of Impact. Hope to see you then.